Scale, exit, repeat.
That what it takes to win. That is what today's show is all about. And we have our guest, Michael Gilmour. He will be joining us very soon. Michael actually comes to us from Australia, but today he is in the Fort Lauderdale studio. He is actually at Startup Club, which is an incubator in Fort Lauderdale, and he is our moderator today. He has been moderating this show. I have been his co-moderator, his assistant now for, what, 3 years, Michael?
Yeah, it's been quite some time, Colin, and it's been more than 3 years now, and that we've been running the Complete Entrepreneur. We had a bit of a break the last few weeks, with all the different traveling and things like that's been going on, but it's so good to be back. I don't know about you, Colin, but today's topic is going to be absolutely awesome. The startup mindset, what it takes to win. What does it really take to win? That's what it's all about, isn't it, Colin?
And this is going to be a podcast as it goes into a podcast network. It goes on YouTube, it goes on startup.club, and it will also be the topic. The content that we produce from this show today will be a content of a national article which will come out with a very similar title. So if you want to follow up on that, you can go to startup.club in about 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and it'll actually come out as a national article. What we're doing now at startup.club is we have all these different ways that you can interact with us, whether it's through Clubhouse, through podcasts, through YouTube, through reading articles, through our email. We do a monthly email. Go to startup.club, get signed up to it. It's the masterclass of email, and it also has a time to sell index, which based on empirical data, which we measure every single month based on IPO data. And it really is truly a masterclass of ideas to help you launch your business. So that's something you do want to sign up to. But today's topic is the startup mindset, what it takes to win. And I do believe, Michael, that your mind is the most important the most important tool you have for success in a startup is your mind. It's the decisions you make. But there's a
Yep.
lot of things that go through your head. And I've been in business now for 30 years. We're launching a brand new division tomorrow. It's a retail division for paw.com. And it's in the busiest mall in America. And I'm nervous. I'm scared. I don't even, did we make a huge mistake? Did we just screw up? There's all these things that go through our head. But if you want to be successful at entrepreneurship, if you want to be successful at a startup, if you want to be successful as a founder, then you need to enter that space with the right mindset. So hopefully we're going to be able to talk about that today. And Michael, I just like you're going to lead us on this one. It
Yeah.
is a tough one, isn't it?
It really is a tough one, Colin. And this is the complete entrepreneur. So, the thing we're going to be looking at is not just some of the things that the mindset will give you for your business, but what does it mean to have the right mindset for your life as an entrepreneur? And we're going to be unpacking that as well across the coming hour. But for those of you in the audience, if you want to come and join us up on stage, we'd love to hear from you. Put your hand up and we'll get you up here on stage with us. And as we begin to explore what does it mean to have the right mindset. Now, Colin, I don't know about you, but I think the one of the most important strategic resources that an entrepreneur has is their mindset. Is it's that constant desire to learn. It's the constant desire to want to try things new, to push the envelope, and to look at the world around them and say, you know what, I think I can make this better. I can make this better. And that's why they start their businesses. Most entrepreneurs is they see a need and they go after it. Like they go along and say to themselves, "I'm going to make this better." But more than just make this better, I can make some money off it in the future as well. And I think that's one of the really exciting thing. I actually said to my management team, I said to them, "The business will only go as far as we ourselves are able to encompass." What did I mean by that? I meant that we as individuals in the management team, like in my case, we have to be constantly learning new skills. If we do not learn new skills, then what happens is that we will not be able to grow with the business. And then it will be promoted to our level of incompetence. And so, one of the most important things or mindsets that an entrepreneur needs to really grasp hold of is that relentless focus on learning. For instance, myself, Colin, I spend about 30 minutes in the morning of every single day learning. Learning management techniques from reading books or doing master classes or watching videos, learning from others, reading biographies. I spend at least 30 minutes every single day. And then I spend a time of reflection, of reflecting what did I learn the previous day? Or I may do that at the end of my day. And it's actually, when you look at very successful entrepreneurs, they quite often will do that sort of thing. They'll reflect and they'll spend time learning. It's interesting that when you look at someone like Elon Musk, a guy interviewing him said, "So, what do you actually know about rockets? Like before you started SpaceX and everything like that?" And Elon just looked at him with a puzzled expression on his face and said, "I just read books." Yeah, I don't think your learning finishes when you finish school or something like that, or to finish your degree or whatever it is. You've actually got to go and have that relentless focus on learning. So that entrepreneurial mindset is all about that. And I don't know about you, Colin, but I think that it's so important for entrepreneurs just to learn, just to learn,
I
to be,
agree. Look, Michael, I think you're on of the. I don't know how many we're going to uncover today. Like the startup mindset. Maybe it's going to be
yeah.
seven habits
Y-
of
it could
becoming
end up being
a
multiple
startup mindset.
shows.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. But I think you're onto something here with the learning and it being the key in this curiosity. I often say that it takes a village to raise a startup, and you really should get involved in a local incubator, shared office space. A lot of them are free. A lot of universities put them on, governments put them on. And it's a way of connecting in with other people and learning from others. I also belong to an entrepreneurs organization. I learn a lot from them. It's called EO. It's Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a global organization of about 18,000 members. You tend to have to be a little bit larger to get into that one, but they have an accelerator program as well. But there are programs out there for you to join so you can learn and evolve and develop your skills. So I think the first of our habits, we'll call them, Michael, is
Yep.
learning.
Yeah,
And it's
definitely learning.
curiosity, this desire to have curiosity, your mindset,
Hey,
the startup mindset, you have to have that curiosity and learning mode on. Or else what'll happen, Michael, is you'll launch and you'll think you're perfect. You won't iterate, you won't learn, you won't change, you won't pivot, and you'll end up blowing up. So I think if you're gonna launch a startup, I think having that learning mode on is a good one.
I think you touched on something though, Colin. I just want to interrupt you there. Is that there's learning, which is, yes, I'm going to go along and learn. I'm going to read books on teams. I'm going to read books on leadership. I'm going to read books on whatever it is. But you introduced something else there, which was curiosity. And there's one thing that entrepreneurs need is an insatiable curiosity. Give an example. My wife, she's an operating theater nurse, and she quite often works on the weekend. And I use that time to just satisfy my curiosity. So I'll dig into, okay, I'm going to create an AI agent today, and I'm going to learn all about that. And in fact, you and I were talking earlier today about this, Colin. The fact that we're both absolutely fanatical about AI, and the reason why we are is we have this insatiable curiosity that we need to be ahead rather than behind. We need to be ahead and moving forward continuously in our businesses and everything. The only way we can do that is if we satisfy our curiosity now. I'm a firm believer if you want to understand something, become it. I remember many years ago when I founded an ISP, people said, "What's this internet thing?" And I said, "That's actually a really good question. I think I'm going to become one." And so I founded an ISP. Then I thought, "Oh, gee, what is this thing called web development?" And so I founded a web development company. "Oh, what is this other thing about domain names?" I founded a domain company. I'm a firm believer. It forces you to have that curious mindset. And I just love that. I constantly read stuff just because I'm curious, and particularly in other disciplines, whether it's physics or some technology area or whatever it is, I'm constantly reading about it. because I think to myself, how can I then apply the learnings from this other discipline to my business? And just be curious. We live in a world today which is just full of wonders. It's full of wonders. It's amazing. It's funny. We look at the Star Trek and people, it was a Captain Kirk pulled out his communicator and he said, "Hey, Scotty, beam me up now," whatever. Our phones do more than his communicator did. They did more than the tricorder did. And we've got it in our pocket. We're surrounded by wonders. Like signals are going into outer space, bouncing around the planet to be able to talk to someone on the other side of the world. If you've got the right phone number, you can pick up your phone and call the Pope. Aren't you amazed by that? You may not be able to get through all the handlers and everything, but you could, yeah, if you had the right number.
Yeah,
But
Michael. So I wonder if,
it's.
like, you're talking also though about this idea of jumping in. Like entrepreneurs, like you have to have this
I agree.
mindset
You just got to
of
jump
just
in
jump
sometimes.
into the middle of it because you don't know what you're dealing with sometimes. My coach, my CEO coach, used to say to me, "Just, you know what? We don't know how to solve this problem yet, but we're in the right zip code. All right, so we're getting close.
Yep.
But you just have to jump into it. For instance, if you want to learn something, you want to launch a business idea, you just got to sometimes jump into it. Doesn't mean you have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to launch your idea. You can jump into something. Like I've been working on a project using AI, my AI
Mm.
friend, and I've just been going in deep, real deep with this. I spent 20 hours, 30 hours on it, going back and forth on this business case study, and it's going to launch in January. It's a pretty cool concept around domain names, but I've been working on this and I just jumped into it. I didn't know what I was getting in when I first jumped into it. Isn't that okay? So is that it? Is stupidity or ignorance an actual
No, I think it's
habit
a.
of success?
I,
No, I'm throwing that
no,
out there because if you knew what if I knew what I needed to know, if I knew stuff before I launched my companies, I never would have launched them. I
I
honestly
think
believe ignorance, like the book Start, Scale, and Repeat, right? Let's think about that for a second. Never wrote a book my entire life. Had C's in English in my entire life. And it's now become the most awarded book in history for entrepreneurship. Okay, how the heck did that happen? And I went into that whole process of that 10-year process, writing the book and everything, without ever talking to anyone. I know this is going to be an antithesis to what we just talked about on learning, but I just didn't know what I was doing. And because I didn't, I broke a lot of conventions, which now are getting awards for, including the cover, the design of the inside, the length of the book being double the size of the average business book, everything. I broke a lot of conventions, but somehow it worked. So I think ignorance could be
no, it's not
ignorance is
ignorance.
this. No,
It's
okay,
not
okay,
ignorance,
okay.
Colin.
That's why we're having the conversation. That's where we don't have the
It's
answer. We're trying to solve that.
it's
Okay,
naivety. It's a
naivety.
childlike naivety, and you've got to maintain that because you end up going to places that other people go say, "Oh no, that won't work." No, you just go there, and I think that's actually a really important thing. Like I say to my team all the time, I say, just launch it. In fact, if you look at the back of my computer, I got a sticker that's on it, and it says "Go for launch." In other words, the only thing that ultimately counts is what the customers think of what you've done. And you want to get that feedback from customers as fast as you possibly can. And so I just say to my team, launch it and get that and iterate as fast as you possibly can. And the faster you can iterate, I was speaking to someone recently about this. I said, they asked me, one of your competitive advantages? And I said, it's actually speed now is one of our competitive advantages. We built a platform for speed. And that's speed of development. We're just going to out innovate everyone in the industry I'm in. And that's actually was born out of a naivety of, is this possible or not technologically? I just said, yes, we're just going to do it. And many people will tell you things are impossible, but one of the great gifts an entrepreneur can have is believe the impossible is possible, and you just got to push your way through it. Like it's once again we come back to Elon. No, it's impossible to go along and land rockets, yeah, and return them. You've got to blow them the entirety of the rocket up every single time. And sure enough, he's doing it now. He's launching satellites and he brings the booster back, right? And so he saves himself millions and millions of dollars, massive competitive advantage. And everyone said it was impossible, but he did it. Why? Because he was naive. He really was. He just said, I wonder why no one's done it. And I wonder if we could do it. And he has worked away at the problem. And that's what an entrepreneur needs to do, Colin. They need to be just not believing the masses. I saw a great picture one time of this whole school of fish heading in one direction and one fish going the opposite way. And that's the entrepreneur. Or as Steve Jobs said, what did he say? He said, there was something to the effect of people don't know what products to buy because I haven't told them yet.
Oh, I
Yeah.
remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Because in a sense, they do all these studies. You can study all you want, but you have to have that instinct. And I
Yeah.
like this. Remember Apple's phrase, "Think differently," right?
Yeah.
And
You get this
I think
analysis to paralysis.
I think that thinking differently is important. That's why I think I often say with AI, you got to be careful because you can never outsource the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And AI is a consensus building platform. It uses what's out there as a consensus and tries to spew back information. If you want to come up with a business concept, I call it the 4 sticky note business plan. We have it in the book. But if you want to come up with a business concept, you really do need just to lay that out yourself and then use AI to create a professional business plan for investors. But I'm not saying not to use AI. We love AI. But I think there is something to just having original and raw and real. And yeah, and AI can play a role in that, but it can't. You can never outsource that entrepreneur. You've got the ideas. They need to come from you. And so let's go. Let's talk about a couple other ones. Let's go with. I'm gonna quote "Good to Great" Jim Collins. Right? He would say often with the companies that he studied, the level 5 leaders would have to have two things. One would be an optimism, but a grounded sense of reality. So they would be realistic that these are the challenges we're facing, but then also be optimistic with the team. So is optimism one of the key ingredients for the startup mindset?
Yeah, it is. It really is. In fact, I was accused recently of a guy said, "You're just always so optimistic." And I said to the person, I said, "Look, I make a choice to be optimistic. I make a choice. And the reason why is the world has never been changed by a pessimist. The world has never been changed by a pessimist. It's always been changed by the optimist. So I make a choice to be optimistic." And the other thing I said to him is, what you don't see is when I sit on the couch and I'm thinking by myself, and that's where the realism happens. But in terms of the team, I'm an optimist, absolute optimist.
Do you
And
remember 13 years ago, you interviewed me on your podcast at the time?
yeah, yeah,
And this was before Dot Club came to market. And I said, we're going to
yeah,
get 5 million names in 5 years. And you put that out there, and that became a heading. And there were so many like industry articles and comments about people saying, this is ridiculous, this is impossible. And then fast forward 5 years later, I think I was having a second interview with you or with someone else, and they brought that up. And we had only had 1 million domain names. Now, understand 1 million domain names at $10 a domain, very high margins. This is a very successful business. Don't get me wrong. Okay.
yeah.
And at the time, I said, I had the disease of optimism, the entrepreneurial disease of optimism. And I think we all have that. So could it actually be negative? I'm throwing that out there. Could it actually be a negative thing?
I think you need to balance it with realism, but you balance it privately with realism, where you look at your cash flows and all that sort of stuff. You really you look at it from a realistic perspective. But when you're in the marketplace or with your team, you're an optimist. You make a choice to be an optimist. And I think I would regard that as a real skill that an entrepreneur can choose to develop. You're not going to get any awards by destroying your team, by pouring buckets of cold water over them continuously. And the fact that you got to 1 million domain names as an example, that's a phenomenal achievement. It really is. It's an incredible achievement to be able to get to that level. And as you were saying, it's a very profitable business with that many domains. And it's something that you should be proud of. And if you didn't have the optimism, would you have even have started? Yeah, because you'd say, "Oh, doom and gloom. I'm not gonna be able to
Optimism
do
leads
this."
to positive outcomes. So we had more people registering domains, we had more investors
Correct.
buying in, we had employees coming on. I was able to convince the employees to join the team. And by the way, they all had options and they all walked away with hundreds of thousands of dollars at the end when we sold to GoDaddy. Okay, so the whole thing turned out to be a very successful business venture. But it's interesting to think about that optimism does play a role in almost every venture, even if internally, I like the way you said it there, but internally you feel, oh shit, I'm going off the cliff. And let's talk about that one next, fear. But I'm going off the cliff. Outwardly, we have to show optimism. And if we don't, we're not going to get the team, we're not going to get the investors, we're not going to get it's got to be there and it's got to be real, it's got to be authentic. It can't be a fake optimism either.
Yeah, I think that the other thing is associated with the realism part of it is there's times you can allow yourself to be realistic, and you have to be very careful who you're realistic with. For instance, me with my management team, I'm optimistic, but there'll be times I'll be very realistic with them as well. Realistic about some of the challenges we face. Hey, we got some severe challenges here. We got an industry which has collapsed, be down by 95%. And so we got a huge headwind. So I'll talk about that. But then I'll say, but, and that's the important thing, that word, it's only three characters, but with our new technology, we'll be able to do these things. And it's going to be really important that the CTO delivers on these things, particularly at this point in time. It's really important that the COO delivers on the operational side at this time. It's really important that the chief revenue officer delivers at this point in time, that each one of us deliver as a team. So be realistic, and then when we deliver, guess what? The outcome is going to be outstanding for the company and for each one of us here. Yeah, it's you're mixing a blend at the management team level of realism and optimism so you can show a direction and a vision moving forward which is positive in nature. Now, the rest of the team is just optimism the whole way. Now, when I'm sitting on my couch, it's the realism kicks in. I think, oh my gosh,
And
like
so
this
just
is,
get
this is going to be
sometimes
a
I know, but because sometimes it gets too scary and you never even launch your idea because you're too fearful. You're too fearful. You'll be embarrassed. You're too
I've
fearful.
never done that.
Okay,
I've,
I am fearful. Every time I launch a business, when I launched that book, I swear to God, I was so scared. I was like, I'm going to be so embarrassed with so many people, even though I worked so hard on it. I put everything into it. I'm going to launch it. It's going to flop, and I'm going to look like an idiot. I
you
don't.
see,
That's what goes through my mind. It goes through my mind on every one of my ventures. It's going through my mind tonight because tomorrow we're launching a retail location, the first retail location for paw.com. And you know what? It goes through my mind, and it's going to go through. It's going to go through that fear of that embarrassment that's going to fail, fear of the financial loss, fear of, and how do you get over all those fears? Because if you don't wrestle that monster to the ground and beat it, it'll be debilitating and you will never launch your startup. So your startup mindset needs to include how to conquer fear. And Michael, I know you experience fear. I know you have a facade. I know you're a great businessman. You've been very successful. But I want to hear, don't believe you don't have fears when you do launch businesses.
yeah, it's interesting you say that. There's times for fear that I describe it this way. Sometimes I find think of a whole swarm of butterflies. I don't know whether swarm is the right word or not, but there's a whole lot of butterflies flying all over the place. And what I imagine is they're now flying in formation. And I actually get that picture in my head rather than just fluttering all over the place. And it's just like chaos and everything. I say, okay, how do I get these butterflies to fly in formation? And that drives the fear. The other thing I do to manage sort of my mindset around fear, because it can be terrifying times in business, is that it's that mantra, and I can't remember exactly what it was out of the movie Dune, where fear is the mind killer. But and ultimately, it ends up with, but I will let it pass through me, and only I will remain. And so you embrace the fear, and you get energized by the fear. It's a bit like when I get on the platform at a conference and I'm on the stage and I'm about to do a big presentation or something like that. And some people find that incredibly terrifying. And people say, "Well, you don't look scared at all." I say, "No, I embrace it. I embrace it." And I stand up on the platform and I deliver whatever I'm delivering. And it doesn't mean I don't feel fear, because I do feel fear. But it's how you handle the fear and how I've learned to handle the fear for me. And that's going to be intensely unique for each person, is how they handle the fear. And some people can let it overwhelm them, and that's a bad place to be. And other people could use it to energize them.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. So I remember years ago, I was I was in a situation. Colin, can you
Oh
mute
yeah, sorry
yourself?
about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's okay. No worries. Yeah, yeah.
We live in an incubator, and I got lots of people coming into my office. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I remember years ago I was had a really bad, tough financial time after essentially a failure of a business, which was it was difficult. It was really difficult. And during the latter days of that business, I would just put my head down as I went up the elevator to the office, and I would just say, "Into the breach I now come." And the breach of a gun. And I was shot out of that gun as soon as I stepped out of the elevator, and just assailed with so many problems and challenges and everything like that. We were thrust into circumstances because an investor defaulted on an investment they're going to be putting in. And lots of things occurred because of that. But it was, all right, take a deep breath. Here I come. Here I come. Yeah. And it can be very challenging managing fear. And some people end up with everything from heart problems to other sorts of health problems and things like that. But learning to manage fear as an entrepreneur is absolutely critical, because there will always be times in your entrepreneurial journey that you're fearful. So I've written a book too. I wrote a science fiction book. There's book one of a series. In fact, I was just having to read a book two, a bit of book two, which I haven't published as yet. And it's funny, one of the ways I handled fear for that was people said to me, "Weren't you worried what people would think?" And I said, "Not really, because I wrote it for me." I didn't mind what people thought. What I cared about was what I thought. And people would say to me, "Why did you write?" I said, "I wanted to find out what happened next." And it was a way of handling the fear of embarrassment. And sometimes when we're launching a business, there could be that fear of embarrassment, that could be that fear which grips you, and you think, "Oh, it would be so much easier just to have a job." If you
Okay,
let that
Michael, but how do you
if you let
conquer
that
it though?
overcome you, the
How do you
I don't
conquer that debilitating fear of I want to launch this idea,
you
but
make a
I'm gonna be
decision.
but so you just say you just do it, and then and if your parents or your
No,
friends, like I remember when I first launched my first business in
I th
1993, right out of college, all my college friends were like, "Are you crazy? We're all going to become lawyers and make lots of money, and you're going to make nothing, and you're going to be blah blah blah."
mm,
At the time, I said, "Yeah." Like I don't know, I just went with it. I said, "Yeah, sure, that's what I'm going to do." But I loved it so much. I just
yeah,
love. You have to have a love for this stuff, don't you? You have to have a love for entrepreneurship. We haven't even touched
yeah.
on that one,
Well,
but fear.
I think that's an interesting point. What you raised, though, is that love actually conquers the fear. That's what it is. Your love of being in business, your love of the opportunity, seeing the opportunity, your love and the exhilaration of getting that new client, your love of seeing that thing that didn't exist suddenly exists. That conquers the fear. Your passion conquers the fear. And it doesn't mean you're not
I have a lot of
scared.
investors that come in, a lot of people who pitch me investments. I had one today, and venture capitalists and everything. And it's interesting that if you don't see passion within the entrepreneur, you don't want to invest in them. So
No, you
passion has
don't.
got to be. What is that called? They have to be overtly passionate. Is that what would we call this as part of our formula here for startup mindset?
Yeah, I think it is a
Great
succeed at all
passion,
costs. It's a succeed at all costs.
and you have to believe it. Of
You
course, if
got
you
to
don't
believe
believe
it.
it, you can't get other
You got
people
to
to believe
believe
it,
it.
and then you got to get other people to believe it.
Yeah, if you don't believe it, you're not going to get others to believe it. You have to believe yourself first. and that conquers fear. It's like love does conquer fear. Your love for what you're doing conquers all fear. Just take a look around you. If those of you in the audience, or if you're listening to a podcast or something like that, just I think this is a great exercise. Just look around you at your room. You're sitting in a chair or something like that. You're driving your car, whatever it is. Look around you. Nothing, I repeat, nothing exists without the efforts of an entrepreneur. Nothing.
Even big corporations, right? Because
Big
they were started by
corporations,
entrepreneurs
they'll
originally.
have entrepreneurs inside the corporation. It takes the inspiration of an individual and then a team and so forth like that to create whatever it is. Nothing exists. The only thing that's going to propel society forward is entrepreneurs. That's the only thing.
So is that
The-
another thing too? Embracing your inside artist, your creativity.
oh, you have to. You have to. I'll
Passion
tell
for
you the
this,
other
by the
thing you
way,
got to
because I
do,
have
Colin.
one business. There are exceptions where I have one business where he's an operator. It's not a creative business. It's a block and tackle outsourcing company. I totally understand. But for the most part, I think that entrepreneurs are artists who simply know how to monetize.
I think there's an element of truth to that. There is definitely an element of truth. Like one of the things that I've said to my kids, I said, the most creative thing you can do in the world right now is to launch a business. One of the most creative things. But more than that, by launching a business, you then get feedback, real feedback, not, oh, that's a beautiful painting and everything like that. And then when someone's saying, oh, that really sucks. Yeah, you get real feedback. And what is the real feedback? Your P&L. Did the person really like my product? Yes, they put their hand in their pocket and they bought it. It's the real feedback. Yeah, people can say lots of words and all that sort of stuff, but until they put their hand in their pocket and buy whatever it is, then it's all just words. Yeah, so it came down to the creativity. I think one of the things that an entrepreneur's mindset needs to have is to go through the world with wonder in their eyes of just when I say wonder is that it's that, oh my gosh, there's so many opportunities. I cannot believe that other people can't see this. I remember talking to this one guy once. He said, oh, I just don't know what business to start and I can't come up with an idea. And I'm thinking, you need to open your eyes. I said this to an American friend of mine. I said, look, let me tell you, I'm from Australia, and Australia is like a desert for business, if you ask me. When I step off the plane in, say, Los Angeles, I feel like I'm surrounded by like gold bars just lying on the ground, and I keep on stubbing my toe on them. And I go, "Oh my gosh, look at this gold bar down here!" And I bend down and pick it up. And I said to my friends, I said, "The problem is you guys have got so used to in the U.S. of seeing the gold bars that you don't see them anymore." There's so much opportunity in the United States. It's just the most amazing country in the world. It really is. It's just it just is drenched in business. It's just there's so many things you could do and things like that. It's just mind blowing. When you come from another country and you enter the American marketplace, it's a sense of wonder. It really is. You just go, oh my gosh. Like the total population of Australia can fit in basically greater LA. Yeah, so it's losing the context for a start. And you just there's so much opportunity. If you're from the United States and you're listening to this on podcast or you're here or something like that, then really get a sense of wonder. You live in an amazing country which is full of opportunities and there's endless amounts of them. You just got to open your eyes to them. And I
Yeah.
sometimes wonder, Colin, is that one of
It's
the
like being
best things?
aware, right? You have to
Yeah,
be aware. You have to
yeah.
be. I did an article. It's on Startup Club. I can't remember if I was for Entrepreneur Magazine or Forbes or Startup Club, but it was. I think pretty certain it was Startup Club, and it was on this idea of the idea mindset. Like you just have to, if you want to come up with an idea for a business, you have to be aware. My son found a $20 bill, and he was so excited. And he says, "I'm so lucky." I said, "No, you're not lucky. You're observant." And in
Correct.
life, we've got to be observant. I think observant, we have to be able to identify opportunities, identify problems that exist, and they exist in all of our lives, they exist in all of our jobs. If we're working right now, I often say to people, if you want to start a business, get a job in an industry you love, because then you can begin to see the problems that exist within that industry. So being observant and being aware of particular challenges or problems, opportunities, bottlenecks in an industry, that can position you to come up with the idea to start your business.
Yeah,
Awareness, what's it called? Awareness? Is that the
yeah, I think so. I'll give a classic example. I took my eldest daughter a number of years ago to a conference. She came with me and went to all my meetings and all that sort of stuff. But before we went to the conference, she said to me, "Hey, Dad, so who are we selling to?" And I said, "Selling? What are you talking about?" "Yeah, but who are we selling to?" I said, "We're not. We're going to listen to people and work out if we can help them or not." And I think the key thing, Colin, is an entrepreneur's mindset needs to be one that's willing to listen before they speak. You got to listen because when you listen, you hear the ideas. They just start flowing. As a person begins to explain the problems they're dealing with in their business,
but
and as they're
entrepreneurs don't listen?
explaining them, then you respond and you respond to them. But you remember you got 2 ears, one mouth. Use them in those proportions.
Yeah, but entrepreneurs don't listen. They know all the answers. They just tell you how
Yeah,
it is.
just keep your mouth shut.
Isn't that
Just
funny how
listen.
it really is the opposite of that? It's true. Yeah.
It's
So
just listen.
listening and understanding. Listen to your customers. Listen,
Oh
understand.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
tough for entrepreneurs. I admit it. It's very, especially for early stage companies. When you guys just follow your instinct, and it is tough to sometimes have that listening instinct as a startup because you don't. It's just not. It's not natural. It's definitely not innate in most entrepreneurs that I know.
yeah. You've got to learn to listen. You really have to learn to listen. And if you don't learn to listen, then if you don't learn to listen as an entrepreneur, then you're going to miss out on so many opportunities. But not only that, you won't be hearing from your customers, and your customers will say to you, "Yeah, this part of the product really sucks. I like this bit here, but this part here, yeah, it really, it's no good for me." Like you got to learn to listen. And by the way, don't get defensive. If someone tells you, like I said to my team, once again, coming back to my team, they're getting a bit upset because some sort of customers complaining all the time about the product and everything, some aspects of it. And I said to them, guys, stop it. And they said, what? I said, that client is gold. They care so much that they're willing to go along and tell us what is wrong. They're gold. The worst client is the one that just goes off somewhere else, and you never know why. You want to hear all the negative things and all the great things. You want to hear both, and it allows you to learn so fast by hearing both. But anyway, I noticed we got Wesley in the audience here. It's come up on stage. Wesley, it's fantastic to have you up here with Colin and I. Love to hear your thoughts on the startup mindset. Over to you, Wesley.
No, I think one of the things that you tipped off on, a startup, when you run the numbers, okay, you can throw numbers all over the place, okay? An investor needs to run their own numbers. That's like me trying to start my cat litter business. I can run these numbers and they're crazy numbers. But you know what? If you're an investor, you got to run your own numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Investors will run their own numbers. That's for sure. I'm yet to see every presentation I've seen by an entrepreneur who's looking at raising cash for investors. Their revenue line always looks like a hockey stick, and they'll say something like, if we just get 1% of the global
Oh,
market,"
that's the worst. That's the
not
worst.
understanding what it takes to get 1% of the global market is just an enormous amount of effort. They always look like a hockey stick. I've never seen any, and they'll always tell you they're conservative projections. And
I,
as an
I
investor,
can
you just
run
discount them
these
massively.
numbers till the cows come home.
Yep.
But you, as an investor that wants to invest in me, you're going to have to run the numbers yourself. I
Of
can
course you are.
throw oh my God, I can show you astronomical numbers. But the bottom line is, do the numbers work?
Yeah, which you raise up an interesting issue, Wesley, and Colin. Love to get your feedback on this, which is maybe another part of the entrepreneurial mindset is a mindset which is focused on execution. Which is, it's one thing to have a dream.
Necessarily, I don't believe that it's necessarily the execution. A person has a certain passion and they believe in that deal. I've seen it over and over again. I got my little tiny passion. All I want to do is go into the cat litter market. What does that mean? Doesn't mean jack shit. But I can throw you numbers. You've got to have the numbers. If it's not a viable deal, then fuck it. I'm out.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. And I think one of the things is when you look at the numbers and you look at a cash flow projection, what you're actually looking at is an assessment of risk from an investor's perspective. Colin, I'd love your thoughts on this. Is it an assessment of risk? And then we can bring it back to the startup mindset, what it takes to win. But just coming to Wesley's question and his statement around the numbers, what is it about entrepreneurs' numbers which are they based in a reality? So should one of the mindsets be a focus on reality when it comes to the numbers?
The whole reality is, okay, how much is it going to take monetarily wise to get that product to market? Is it a marketable product? Am I going to put 500,000? Am I going to put $1 million? Okay, let's run the numbers. If I'm an investor, which you are, I'm not. I'm the one trying to pitch my cat litter shit. All right. The fact of the matter is, does it look good on paper? How much would I invest to try to get it to market?
Yeah, Colin, what's your thoughts on what Wesley just said?
Sorry, I had my microphone on. Yeah, okay. So let me first start by saying about 3 years ago, I was in Bahamas with one of my business partners, and we're on a beach. And he turns to me and he goes, Colin, I've never seen anybody in my life who's better at taking risks than you. That you're a gambler, but you do it very calculated. You're a calculated gambler. So is taking risks, is gambling part of the startup mindset? And I'm actually going to make the case it is. I think there
I
actually
think it
is
is.
something to that. I think there is something to
I
the
agree.
fact that you don't know. I don't care how solid your business plan is. Like Wesley says, like you can have the best cat litter going here, okay? But if you launch that business, you don't know it's going to succeed. Nobody does. Everything is theoretical in nature. And then you apply the theory, you think it's going to work, and like back in the 1984 show, The A Team, I think his name was Hannibal. He said, I love it when a plan comes together. He's got a
Mm.
cigar in his mouth. Wesley, I don't know if you remember that show.
Yeah, I remember that show.
No, I totally know what y'all are talking about.
Yeah, no, I'm having fun here. But the reality is this idea that as one of the mindsets, you got to be willing to take risks. And Wesley, I want to hear from you about that. Like, what do you think about that concept? Because we're trying to
Well, I
get the
mean,
mindset of an entrepreneur, startup, right?
that is the concept of this whole deal. Okay, when you look at the cat litter market, okay, and I've got a really prime example. When you're looking at these numbers, between 300 and 600 million bags of cat litter that are sold every year, that is a very lucrative market. Okay, and that now we're moving in. When you go, if y'all go to my website and just see what I'm trying to pitch, you got to think: is this reality? Okay, how much is it going to take for that reality to come to fruition? Is it 100? How much money are you going to invest in there? I believe it's 500 million. I
So,
mean,
Wesley, would you share your website with us so we can see it? You've got our
yeah,
curiosity
yeah,
up on this. We're
yeah. It's
Startup Club, right? We don't mind if you do that.
no, it's ecolitter.com. How do I do it?
Ecolitter.com.
Yep.
All right, because we have an e-commerce, cat e-commerce site here in the incubator called
Yeah,
Meowingtons.
it's
Ecolitter.
ecolitter.com. How do I share this with you?
I got it on the screen here. It says coming soon.
Yep,
Cat litter is hurting our
that's it.
planet, helping our
That's it.
planet. Start
Yep,
swimming. Yeah,
yep,
cat
yep,
litter
yep,
is
yep,
estimated that
yep,
there's
yep,
101 million
yep,
households.
yep.
So this is a great concept. You've identified a. I love this because you've identified something that is a need in the marketplace. Cats use it, but you also recognize the importance of the eco aspect of it, and you're starting to niche into a particular area. I've not done an analysis to see what other companies are eco, other litter companies, but it looks like a great website. You're really making the case very nicely here. The packaging looks great, and I even like the fact you use eco packaging. You can tell that. I hate it when eco companies use packaging with lots of dyes and everything on their packaging. But this is
Right.
good. This is good.
No,
Wow.
the fact of the matter is, you have to understand this goes way back. I am so passionate about just this little segment of the market. Nobody knows. We're all talking about how can we save the
Yeah.
planet in quotation marks, right? That's all you can do. It starts right when you're looking at 100 million. The market is just it's freaky.
Yeah, I think if I can just jump in there, Wesley, I think the interesting thing is this: is that when you look at the numbers and you're doing a cash flow projection or something like that, is
Right.
what you're trying to identify in that process is what are the assumptions you've made, and then as you test the market, then you want to go along nail down those assumptions so that it gives more foundation to your financial model. And so that's the approach I take anyway. So for one of the things, for instance, I would do, I was just looking at your website then, would be to put on there, we're launching soon. If you'd like to hear about when we are launched, please leave your email address here.
I've got it. I've
Yeah,
done it.
and you go and get that as an example. And then what you do is you go along and spend $100 on advertising and see how many people actually left their email address for $100. And
Well,
they're
here's the
potential
deal,
customers.
Michael.
Yeah.
Again, if I'm going
Yeah.
to approach you, if I'm going to approach you and say, Michael,
Yep.
would you like to invest in my cat litter company? You're going to have to run these numbers. I've got all the I can blow figures out of your freaking bunghole. The fact of the matter is, if the numbers don't work, the numbers don't work.
Yeah, I think the thing I'm trying to suggest is this is that, and it coming back to this startup mindset,
Mm,
is the mindset of any entrepreneur should be to eliminate all
nope,
the unknowns that are known. In other
nope,
words,
nope. I'm approaching you as an investor, and you're the one that's going to have to say, I'm going to put money into this deal.
yeah,
Let's roll it out. I want this much control of the company. We're going to do it. We're going to say, fuck it. Let's fucking roll.
yeah. So the question I would then say to you then is this: as I look at your numbers, because they're your numbers I'm investing in, I'll go along, I'll look at your numbers, and
Right?
I'll try to determine which of your numbers are factual or which of your numbers are the best guess.
Absolutely. You couldn't
Okay.
have said it any
And
better.
yeah, and if your numbers that are best guesses could be
And
determined,
that's all they are.
the first thing I would say to you would be get rid of the guesses and get them determined as fast as you can.
Absolutely.
And
I
by the
can
way,
look,
from an
okay, all I can
entrepreneur's
do is
perspective,
gauge.
yeah,
I can gauge what, like, for example, Pretty Litter did. Pretty Litter sold them. They were in business 5 years. And I'm not saying that my little cat litter business that I'm trying to start. Do you know how much Pretty Litter sold to Mars Corporation for? They were
no,
only in business 5 years. They sold for
Billion.
$1 billion.
$1 billion. Unbelievable.
yeah,
1 billion. 1 billion. No, Colin apparently looked it up. Yeah, Pretty Litter, 5 years in business, made a little fucking cat litter shit where a cat pees on, and you're going, oh, their urine made a change in the deal. Mars
Yeah, I've
bought
seen
them.
the commercials. I've seen the commercials. Yeah,
1 billion. 1 billion.
because they were a little different, right? They went out. They didn't have the same product, and I think differentiation matters. We've covered a lot of areas today. Have we covered tenacity, Michael? Like, I think
no,
that's
we
part
haven't.
of the
I think that's
formula.
another one is
And
being tenacious.
I know, yeah, Magnificent in the audience would agree with me on this one. Tenacious, being like you just can't give up. You got to keep going. There is a point in time where you set a stage gate and you say, if I don't hit it, then I can pivot or kill it. But I do believe tenacity is part of the play. Wesley, you want to jump in on that one?
I'm complete tenacity when it comes to this, especially when it comes to of just how much the clay cat litter market destroys the whole entire globe. I've got a full segment on there. It's total destruction. I mean, it destroys ecosystems. It destroys every little bitty tiny critter from a raccoon to a worm. Fuck that cat litter market, man. When you look, you're going to see it. I've got it right there. I've got the pictures of where they just destroy our planet. For what? A cat to take a piss and shit? That's it. That's all it is.
I can tell you, Wesley, you got the right name. It's a great name. It's a great concept. You're obsessed with it. You understand it. You've got the startup mindset. What's holding you back from launching it?
It's money. It's money.
Money.
I'm here in the pitch room. I'm in the startup club. It's money. It's getting people behind me that believe in this concept.
About in my book, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, is that it's a very important to prove a concept. And when you prove it, it's easier to get investors. It's hard to get
Well,
investors at the concept stage. Very hard. You
and
admit it's very hard right now in this concept stage to get it. But let's just say that you were able to cut a distribution deal with a company and you say, look, I just did a distribution deal with this one company. If I do 10 more distribution deals, this could, but I just need X million dollars to do that. That's an easy deal. That's an easy sale. That's an easy investment. What's difficult is when you got to prove it. You got to prove your model. And that's the challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs is that they don't 82% of businesses startups fail because of financial they don't have enough money to succeed. They could be a great story. You got a great story. I'll be honest with you, Wesley, you got a great story. Okay. I got a great name, great story, ecolitter.com, great name. Great story. It sounds like you're an entrepreneur. You're a pure entrepreneur. You're born and bred. And then you've got the systems, you understand what needs to launch, but what you need is money right now. And I understand that. There are a number of things you can do early stage stuff. This show is not about that today. around doing pitch competitions, getting involved in government, getting some government subsidies, some early on kind of stuff like that.
You
But
may
the
get
show's
an
not
angel
about that
investor
today.
too.
Yeah, angel investors. But the show's not about that today. The show is today about the startup mindset. You're coming in here. We love talking to you because you're like our case study right now. We're having fun with you on stage
Okay,
and
good.
really enjoying this.
This would be, and I'm so thankful that you're saying that my little business is a case study, because it truly is. How are we going to change the world? I don't know. My little tiny thing is, I don't believe that people understand how to just change the world. When you're dealing, okay, we're only talking about North America. We're not talking around the rest of the world. When you really truly do the research on the stuff, it's mind boggling. When you're talking about selling 300, just in the US alone, between 300 to 600 million bags of cat litter a year. Is this fucking real? Are these numbers really real? You got to look at it. And that's what other people in this market that are sniffing around on what I'm trying to pitch, they're like
Yeah.
going, yeah,
I think Wesley, I think it's amazing. You see an opportunity as an entrepreneur. You're putting legs on that opportunity. I commend you for that. I really do. But I couldn't help noticing, Colin. It's the end of the show. It's our time is up. So the startup mindset, boy, there's a lot of things in there, from creativity to tenacity to of just having that positive mental attitude, being the optimist, not the pessimist. There's all different
But
things we covered today,
with
Colin.
God now,
And
but I like what Joe
yeah,
said, delusional.
yeah, there's
It's
a
delusional,
delusional mentality. Yes.
delusional mentality. I think that's got to be one of them. Oh, and
well, that's the actual reality of the world. It's
Yeah.
the delusional reality that these things don't exist. But in my case, they do
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah. I think that the entrepreneurs sees things that don't exist and they believe things what they can be. And I think we're going to finish on that. But Colin, who's the author of Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, it's always great to have
it's
Colin
been an
here
exciting
as my
day. I don't know if you
co-host,
heard what
which is
happened.
fantastic. I believe that Colin, that tomorrow you've got a great show. Is that right?
Now, tomorrow I'm launching the retail shop at Aventura Mall in South
Oh,
Florida.
that's right.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
so you
tomorrow's show
don't
is
tomorrow.
canceled. Tomorrow's show is canceled if you're here on Clubhouse.
Yeah. But it's one of those things. So it's wonderful having you all
No,
here. I just like
sorry,
to say
I
thank
was
you very
talking
much,
there,
Wesley.
Michael, and I was like, and you were responding. I don't know how you're responding. I'm on mute. Okay. So tomorrow I'm at
Yeah.
Aventura. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
All
can hear
right.
you.
So I'm at Aventura Mall. Did you hear that? I don't know. All right. So I'm at Aventura Mall tomorrow. We're launching our first store at paw.com. If you're in Aventura Mall and so forth, love for you to come and buy a product from us. And so we had to cancel tomorrow's show on Clubhouse, but we will be back. We will be back in 2 weeks. We won't be back the following week because of the holidays, but we will be back. We will be back. What I will say is that today we had a very exciting day. It came out that we won our 37th Global Award for Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat,
Oh,
and now
wow.
are the most awarded book in history for entrepreneurship. So if you haven't already got a copy, grab a copy of Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. It really is a guidebook, a methodology to success, to helping you launch, to start a business, scale a business, exit, repeat. I've done it over 12 multi-million dollar companies. I failed. I lost $100 million when I was 29 years old. The story's in the book. Okay, so I'm not perfect, but what we've done is we've interviewed 200 people. We have 77 chapters. We have 50 of those 200 people we interviewed are actually in the book, and we interviewed and that are actually the stories are in their book, in the book. And we have experts, billionaires, serial entrepreneurs, authors, famous authors in the book. And it was just such a pleasure putting that book together. And today it came out that we have now been considered the most awarded book in history with 37 global awards. Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. Thank you all. Magnificent. Thanks for joining. I know you couldn't come on stage today,
Yes.
but we appreciate you joining anyway.
Thank you
And
very much, everyone.
Mark and everyone else. And just this is what it is, community. And Wesley, you're amazing. We love
Okay.
that you came on stage, Wesley, and just share with us and share your raw
Well, I
self.
mean,
Because that's what we want.
Colin,
We want the raw. We don't want the corporate Wesley. We want the raw Wesley.
I am the raw.
Yeah. It's really great hearing from you, Wesley. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone.
All
May
right.
your business be a very successful one in the coming week. And we look forward to hearing you next week on The Complete Entrepreneur. God bless. Bye.